sheets, house and pumpkin pie and turkey and all that good stuff. And we know the Ravens headed off to Green Bay this weekend. But more than that, we got hardwoods happening here. I've said all week, the Terps are playing football barely, but also playing basketball right now. They've gotten off to a good start. And our guy, Robert Canady's been running around to some local gyms here as we do. And we are the voice of Coppin State. We'll have their games this week as well. And we'll also hear from Juan Dixon as well as Coach Burrows from the Lady Eagles this week. But Robert Canady's on the scene. He is buckets and birds. Many of you know him from down at Compass Point Golf, where he also runs a little golf thing down there in Pasadena. But I know him from the basketball world. I think I met you many moons ago, back when Towson used to be our flagship. And I know you made your way out to CQ this week as well as Navy. Hey, I tell you what, if you love local college basketball, you can go 3-4 nights a week for less than $10 in most places and watch a very good brand of basketball. Lots and lots of places around here.
Absolutely, Nestor. I mean, that's the toughest thing about the basketball in this area in this time of year is finding time to fit them all in. There's multiple nights. You've got multiple games in the area that especially out of conference and everything. You get some interesting matchups. So you can easily fill 3 or 4 nights a week looking and watching some good college hoops in the area, which I filled a couple nights this past week doing just that.
Well, let's start at the beginning with Maryland. Obviously Maryland's not going to be challenged so much. The Butler thing becomes a big deal, though, right? And that would be the one game I think everybody would circle. There's always a couple of those on the Maryland side, but that's an interesting matchup, and I think that's one that everyone will stop and take note of, right?
Right, that's going to be a good early season test for them Wednesday. They've had a couple easy games to get off to a 2-0 start, in Maryland Eastern Shore and Stony Brook. But Butler, coming out of even though they are picked, I think, 8th in the Big East this year, they're coming off, they lost a lot from last year's tournament team, but still, that's a team that, has a, good pedigree the last 15 years or so, and it'll be a good preseason test for them. They follow that up with Bucknell, again, another mid-major that's predicted to win the Patriot League Conference this year. And
they were sneaking around here 2 weeks ago, right, with Towson, right?
Right. They played Towson in an exhibition game and played them really well. So that's two good, mid-conference teams for them to play coming up here.
Well, I know you were down at Navy last week as well, and a lot of people aren't familiar with the Navy tournament, and I know Maryland's going to be involved in that moving forward, but it certainly caught my attention over the weekend, especially on a weekend where, let's be honest, the Ravens didn't play, the Orioles weren't playing, the World Series was, there was a lot of college football going on Saturday, but the kickoff of college basketball across the board, everyone's excited about it.
It was a great way to start the season. The Veterans Day weekend, they tie it into that every year called the Veterans Classic, and Navy hosts usually 3 very top tier teams from the country come in for it. In the past, North Carolina's come in, Florida's come in. This year they had Alabama and Memphis play in the first game, and then Navy not only hosted Pitt, but they beat Pitt in the nightcap. And granted, it's a Pitt team that's maybe one of the youngest teams in the country. I think they had 8 players who were playing their very first college game ever that night. So, but Navy's a much improved team over the past couple of years, and so that's a great way to start it. And then the Alabama Memphis game was great. You got to see 2 kind of top tier coaches there, Tubby Smith and Avery Johnson, of his NBA fame at the San Antonio Spurs. Coaching Memphis now, and Tubby Smith at Alabama. So, I'm sorry, Tubby Smith at Memphis. Alabama was Avery Johnson. So, it was a great night to kick off the season. And then, like you said, Maryland will be participating in that next year, so that'll even add some more local flavor to it.
Certainly some star power down there at the Naval Academy. Their schedule's a little weird. Bryant, I don't even know anything about Bryant, St. Francis, Florida Gulf Coast. They certainly have some weird matches, but we talk so much. Once we get into December, Navy's going to play Morgan. They're going to play Coppin. They're going to play Loyola. Same thing for Maryland playing Coppin. I mean, there's a lot of mix and match coming up, but this first week is really about like Coppin State flying off to Oregon, or in their case playing Cincinnati here later in the week, which I know Coppin sort of takes on a lot, and I talked to Juan about that a little bit. We'll talk to him later in the week about it as well, but that's kind of a tradition that when you look up, Coppin's always playing the big dogs, right?
They are. That's pretty much what they're known for, a tough out-of-conference, on-the-road schedule. Again, doing so many of these teams with the buy-in games, to get their gate receipts, help the athletic budgets for the season and everything. And, it gets them some, a couple things. It also does, in addition to that, it gets the kids a chance to travel and see different areas of the country, play some teams that, that are be able to, one can recruit and say, hey, we're going to go on the road and you're going to see Cincinnati, you're going to see Connecticut, or Georgetown. We're going to play some pretty tough schedules. So, that's something that going to another school of that level, they may not get that exposure and everything. So it's a great thing for them as well, for the kids.
Well, let's talk about Towson. I know you were out there the other night as well, and I know you've been bullish on their program being amongst the best of the small schools here. I think UMBC may have a case to make before it's all over with, but you got to see the Tigers and Pat Scarry up close the other night.
Right. They lost on the road on that Friday night opener down to Old Dominion. A very tough loss. They had a chance to hit a shot at the end to win it, but then they came home Monday night and played their home opener. And granted, it was against Frostburg State, Division III school, but that was one that they were allowed to schedule for participating. In the Florida tournament that'll be coming up next week. The NCAA game.
How does that work? Explain that to everybody.
Well, I briefly know a little bit about it. The NCAA is kind of cracked down on the number of Division I games that you can play. They used to all schedule at least one or two early in the season, to get ready, cupcake games.
I remember athletes in action, man.
Right. And Georgetown has done a few of those in the past. So the NCAA kind of, put a kibosh on that, and it said that, you weren't able to schedule anymore during the regular season. Unless you get an exemption for it. And I guess I didn't get all the details behind it, but Pat Scarry did mention they were allowed to schedule this game due to participating, in one of these tournaments coming up. They've got a tournament down in Florida Gulf Coast that they're playing. Then they go to Ireland in early December to play a couple games over there against LaSalle and Holy Cross. So yeah, Frostburg was a one game. They did what you hoped they would do against that. They 89-45 was never in doubt, but gave the kids a chance to get out, and everyone got to action. They had, I think, emptied their bench 10 minutes into the first half, and they're going to be deep this year. As far as you said, being bullish on them, they've won 20 games 3 of the last 4 years. Looks like they'll probably be knocking on that door again this year. They brought a lot back from last year. They're picked second in the CAA, so there's definitely big expectations there. UMBC is, again, like you said, they'll be challenging them for maybe that second tier here behind Maryland in the area. And UMBC, brings back a lot from a 20-win team. And they went out and they played a couple tough games on the road at SMU and at Arizona, and put a little scare into SMU in that first game. They were leading late into the second half.
I looked down and I saw that. I mean, I had that on my phone, and I'm like, whoa, because I follow the dogs out on Twitter, so. Right.
And so they definitely showed well there. They've got the preseason player of the year in the conference, Jarius Lyles. So they're definitely going to be a team to watch. They'll be playing some of the local teams as well this year. Like you said, they'll be playing at Towson, and they'll play Coppin, and they'll play Maryland right at the end of the non-conference season. They'll go down to the Xfinity Center and play Maryland. So they'll definitely get to show their wares against some of the local teams as well.
You mentioned Towson. They play Loyola this week, Friday night, right?
They do. A road game, if you will. They'll pack up the car and drive about 4 miles down the road there and play Loyola.
If they would have lost to Frostburg, I think Scarry would have made him walk down York Road, right?
I think he might have, yeah. So that'll be
or Charles Street. I should say Charles Street.
That'll be a good local game to kick off. Like you said, the crosstown rivalries that a lot of these teams are going to play during the preseason. So that'll be a good test.
Lots of college basketball in the area. Robert Canady follows it all and has been doing that for a number of years for us. We love having Robert as part of the programming here this time of year to talk basketball, but of course golf is his primary gig in the spring and in the summer. He does golf sales for a living down at Compass Point Golf Course. If you're down in the Pasadena area, if you're looking for maybe a spring event, looking for a holiday event, Compass Point's a great place to do that. The best place to play in fall and winter. And I know Robert doesn't like these heavy jackets coming out so much. I got to tell you about our friends at Fremont Mortgage. Don't make it 30-year mistake by choosing the wrong lender. You need Freedmont's education online. Whether you're buying, selling, or just want to learn, Freedmont.com has Freedmont U. Go check it out at Freedmont.com, and don't make that 30-year mistake. Search into it. Trust our friends Carl Delmont, as well as Fremont sponsoring our swabbing at Costas with C.J. Mosley earlier in the week down in Dundalk. So big shout out to everybody there, and good luck to the Harrisburg Heat as well, who Carl Delmont owns. The D&L window tinting folks have been for 26 years now, putting the shade on everything, tinting everything, cars, boats, businesses. They can do that for you. They put the shades on the sun. They take away the squint. They're in Parkville and in White Marsh, DNL Window Tinting. Of course, Robert Canady joining us now. You can follow him at Buckets and Birds out on Twitter. He is always tweeting about local college basketball. If you see a guy down on the press road, looks like him, it is him. But also the golf side of things. And this is the last time we talked, Robert. The weather's changed a little bit here on everybody. And certainly I've got my park out twice in the last week. I was up in New York freezing last week as well. I know your course is open all the time. I don't know what temperature is your where your thermometer goes off and says it's 30. I'm not golfing today, but I know your course is open, and as long as the snow's not there and you keep the rain away, you can play golf anytime, right?
That's true. Yeah, my personal barometer level of play versus some others is a little bit higher. Like I said, if it's I shoot in the 70s. If it's any lower than that, I don't play. Is kind of what I say. But we are open. There's people that were out earlier this week with their jackets on and out playing. And like you said, if it's not snow on the ground, we're playing. We do have an event later in the month, the Black Friday after Thanksgiving. We have our turkey shoot, which will be kind of the last official wrap of the season. We'll have everyone out and have a big shotgun start, and then some turkey and Thanksgiving stuffings and all that afterwards. So that'll kind of put a wrap on the official season, but we'll hope for it that it'll warm up a little bit before that because, with the hoop season heating up, the golf season definitely has cooled off. So.
Well, also holiday parties down there this time of year, too. Everybody's looking to do that. We'll send everybody out to Compass Point and find you. Well, I'm sure you'll be on a hardwood somewhere nearby the Beltway here in the next couple of weeks. There's plenty of basketball going on as well. Hey, man, we'll continue to check in with you. I'm sure we'll talk before next week with Thanksgiving, but make sure you get your pumpkin pie and your turkey all together there, right?
Absolutely, will do, and there'll be some games to be found, and we'll have some good ones to talk about next time we chat.
Always a pleasure. Robert Canady joining us here. He is Buckets and Birds out on Twitter, as well as down at Compass Point Golf Course. Don't forget the silent E out there as well. You can find me out in the BuyAToyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from wherever you happen to be. It's all brought to you by our friends at BuyAToyota.com. Our morning newspaper ships free of charge digitally to your email inbox at 7 a.m. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life. You'll want to get our morning newspaper. Our tech service also there for you on Green Bay weekend here, getting you all the injuries. Who knows if Danny Woodhead's going to be out on the field. We're going to find out any of the other injuries and nicks and bumps the Ravens have on the backside of the bye week. You get all that brought to you by our friends at Coons Ford and Security Boulevard. Dennis Colatzos will be here on Thursday, driving you home from 3 until 5. It is the SSV on WNST. Last but never least, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel, and I am a very available individual, much like Mr. Angelos, nasty at WNST.net. finds me. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 at WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.